back again. Last two questions. I guarantee you guys, it's not a salesman pitch. These are two very big questions. Brian, thank you again. We will put all the links to all the videos. Be sure to watch all of them. There's a lot of great, great philosophical thoughts, but a lot of just true life stories. So I hope you guys enjoyed everything. All right, so this is first major question is, if you were running the country today, what would you do differently, and what would you do if you were the president of the United States?
Jesus. All right. Well, there's a few.
You got at least like 8 minutes to talk about this.
All right. Well, keep in mind first of all that people's perception of what kind of actual powers the president wields and the powers granted to the president by the U.S. Constitution are radically different things. People assign omnipotent abilities to the presidency, when in fact the president, of course, because of the checks and balances that are written into the Constitution, the president's abilities are quite limited. He's pretty much beholden to Congress to do most things. The president can lobby and use the power of his office, as it's called, in order to enact change. But really the president is supposed to be, if you think about what the job of the presidency was in 1776 when the Constitution was written, the president was really just in charge of the military, was in charge of the armed forces. The president doesn't have control over things like taxes and tariffs and the ability to control oil prices and all sorts of stuff. Nowadays, of course, because we live with, in the world of memes and social media and stuff, the president can go, unfortunately, on Twitter and blab about some random garbage and affect the stock market and stuff. That's not supposed to be the role of the president, right? And certainly the founding fathers could not have foreseen that would be something the president would do. But as far as what I would do if I was president,
you're talking about Donald Trump.
I do have political ambitions, but they do not include running for president. I think that job is a job I wouldn't wish on anybody, because it's completely a thankless job and it's so difficult. But I think that there are a few things that I would like to see happen. The two main things, and one of the things that I intend to base a good amount of my political career around, my hopeful political career around, is there was a Supreme Court decision that was reached, I think about a decade ago, called Citizens United, where the Supreme Court, by a 5-4 decision, voted to grant corporations the same rights to free speech that are afforded to individuals, which means that a corporation can go under the umbrella of blanket free speech protections and pump infinite money and anonymously into super PACs, political action committees, that can go and throw their weight behind candidates or causes. And it allows corporations to completely corrupt and warp the political landscape, because super PACs and other political advocacy groups have the ability to spend unlimited money on candidates, and because those PACs are funded directly by individuals, and now because of Citizens United by corporations, they can go and pump $10, $20, $30 million into a congressional race because that particular candidate aligns with their philosophy. So if you're the Koch brothers, if you're Charles and David Koch, and you want to go and have your plant have all of your polluting chemical plant have all of its clean water regulations removed, you can just go and manipulate the elections throughout an entire state by just funding one candidate over the other. And you can do that anonymously, and you can do it with practically infinite money. And the way that our political process works almost without fail is that the candidate that spends the most money wins that particular seat. It completely warps and destroys any semblance of representative democracy in the country.
Yeah.
And it's gotten even more insidious because of the fact that it's so easy now through social media to create a campaign of falsehoods about one particular candidate's point of view. And there's so few checks and balances on that. And of course, it's been corrupted by foreign influence and so on too. So I think that as president, I would do everything I possibly could to advocate for the overturning of the Citizens United ruling by the Supreme Court, even if that required a constitutional convention and a constitutional amendment to do it, which is, I think, something that needs to be written into the Constitution, because it has such an overarching and insidious influence on the American political system. And until something is hard-coded into our Constitution to prevent that, it will just corrupt the political process forever. And I think the other thing I would like to see done, certainly something I would advocate for, is a minimum living wage. And I think that...
You mean like a salary, or?
Yes, it's something that's been discussed a great deal in Europe.
Right.
and which is basically a minimum amount of money that people are given annually to just give citizens a minimum amount of money to survive on. And of course, there's other things like I'm absolutely for single payer healthcare, which is one of the things that Sanders was really was one of the kind of forefront issues in his campaign. It was a campaign promise that Obama failed to deliver on, and not that it was entirely his fault, because he had intractable Republican opposition throughout nearly all of his presidency, and they would never pass single payer. But I think that healthcare reform in the country is vital for the survival of the country and just the well-being of the citizens. Those are like the three main things I would change. But I think at the heart of it all is the corruption of the political process by special interest money. That needs to be, the Constitution needs to be changed to fix that problem.
Great point. I can't believe, just the amount of sway that corporations have is insane. The power.
Yes.
I mean,
the government is literally for sale to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
It really is.
If you can just look at the amount, when you look at the votes that politicians cast in Congress, senators and representatives, and how much those votes are correlated, not to the needs of their constituency, not to their own principles, but how much money they've received from particular donors.
Right.
The alignment is so far beyond the pale, and it's so far beyond coincidence. It is entirely the fault of them basically putting their vote for sale. And
awesome.
That needs to stop.
All right, there you go. You guys, vote for Brian Weissman for president one day. Brian did
not going to run for president.
Brian did say one day he wanted to hint to do some kind of politics. What particular position would you aim for?
I think that I would need to get a taste for it first. Right?
Okay.
This is sort of a starry-eyed, idealized view of what life in politics would be like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people want to get into law, for example, because they watch lots of trial shows and they think that that's what being a lawyer is all about. And then they find that the reality of actually being a lawyer is spending endless hours pouring through case law and looking at dumb little tiny bits of minutia in legal precedent, having to study this giant body of decision making and stuff. And and it's all like done at a desk. It's not something you argue in a courtroom where it's glamorous and stuff. That's, the very, very upper echelon of law practice is that, but most of it is just paperwork.
Yeah.
It's super boring and dull. And I think my suspicion is that politics is a great deal of that too. I want to be in politics, but most of it probably amounts to just sitting in a room listening to people drone on endlessly for hours about some random grain subsidy or something in their state. And ultimately having to vote on something you know nothing about, which is what a lot of people in Congress do. But I think I want to just start with a local office, probably just city council or something, and get my feet wet that way, and then possibly run for a state office. And if I find that I enjoy it, I enjoy working in Olympia and rubbing shoulders with a lot of political opponents who I probably can't stand, possibly segueing further along into an actual federal office.
Well, the compliment I can give you is that people need people like yourself who want real change, and you're genuine about it. I think it's really important to it's hard to meet. You got my vote. I think it's very important to have people in this world that politicians, right? They're not really. The
thing you have to ask yourself though is that I think that I'm speaking from a position of ignorance and idealism, and that I know undoubtedly that there have been countless thousands of people in my position. An idealist who wants to get involved in politics, who believes that they can change the system, that they can buck the trends, that they can go in there and make a difference and cleave to their principles.
They're going on forever.
But they go in there and they find out what the reality of the situation actually is.
Right.
I think that Obama himself was very guilty of this.
Yes.
That he had all of these particular promises about what he felt he could do as president. And when he got in there and he found out, well, wait a minute, actually as president, my powers are super limited. I'm like the king on a chessboard. The king is the most important piece, but the king can't do shit.
Yeah.
Right? The king can't do anything without support from all the other pieces.
So weak of a piece.
And the king is such a weak-ass piece, exactly. It needs protection from all the actual strong pieces. And the president is a lot like that. The president is often a figurehead, doesn't really wield that much political power, and is really dependent on the other people in government. The actual strong pieces on the chessboard of government, like the Speaker of the House and the Majority Whip, the people who can actually get shit done. And I think that Obama recognized that, and so a great deal of what people saw as his reluctance to actually follow his campaign promises and his sort of just sloth in general as an executive were the fault of that, having to constantly compromise on everything, facing opposition at every stage
Right.
of the thing. In Trump's case, of course, he just prattles on about wherever the fuck's on his mind.
He Twitters it tomorrow.
Delusional and suffering from dementia and so on. And clearly doesn't understand what the president does and probably never could be bothered to learn that. But I recognize that now, and I feel that maybe I would go in starry-eyed and optimistic and then come out all jaded and cynical like all these other politicians that people like to malign. I think that a lot of those people have just recognize that this is what the game is, and unless something tremendously fundamentally different changes about what that game is, I'm just going to have to be part of that and accept it if I want to participate in this. And many of them choose after one term, they just say, you know what, this is not for me, this is not what I thought.
All right, so perfect. So you got about 5-6 minutes. Last question is a very it's a legacy question.
Okay.
The legacy question is, when it's all said and done, we're all past. People watching this video, if you're still
very doubtful.
Who is this guy? But I want doubtful. You. No. I want people to know. What are you leaving? What do you want the Magic community, or the people in Magic
to remember about my contribution?
Yeah. What?
I don't think I have to be dead to be in that position.
But you know what I'm talking about, like when years pass down the road,
okay.
Right? Years down.
Let's say 40 years from now, if Magic is still around and people are still playing.
Magic will be around. So let's say we start playing. Who if there's what legacy, what contribution to the community do you want people to remember you by?
Well, I'm positive that unless something very, very massive changes with the way that Magic is designed and played, that the things that I'm generally given credit for, some people have referred to me as the father of card advantage. Some of those fundamental things about the game will still be very much in place. To go back to the chess analogy a little bit, and I'm speaking from a position of mild ignorance here, but at some point in time in the past, there was someone who figured out that chess was about the pawns. That the pawns are these little shitty pieces that it seems like you just throw away at the beginning of the game while you make room for your big strong pieces. But then at some point in time, someone figured out, and it was probably hundreds of years ago, that the pawns really do matter, and that controlling the board with pawns is the key to the game, at least in the early game, before it opens up. And so that guy, the guy that figured out that the pawns really mattered, goes down in chess history, even hundreds and hundreds of years later. Maybe they've forgotten his name, but that guy's contribution was vital to advancing the game and taking it, out of the dark ages, so to speak. And my contributions to Magic are akin to that, to a degree. That when I started to play the game, and for the first 3 or 4 months, I guess it was longer than that, maybe 6 or 7 months, although my contribution started in January of 94 rather than in October of 93 when it started. But the game was completely, I don't think that modern players can really, people who have started in the last 10 years can really appreciate just how clueless everyone was about how to play. No one had the faintest clue about what mattered. And I would like my contribution to still, I guess, be remembered, known that I was, I believe, the first person that figured out what truly mattered in Magic, back when nobody had the faintest clue about what actually mattered.
Yeah.
It was really pulling everything away and getting it down to the very bare essentials, the deep underlying mechanisms of this game, what truly allows you to win in Magic. And that it's fundamentally that life doesn't matter, that your creature count doesn't matter, that all of these things that people thought were vital to surviving and doing well in the game were almost irrelevant. What really, really mattered was that you needed to outdraw your opponent, deny them the ability to draw extra cards, and that would be a route that would lead to all of the things that would result in you winning the game. You would dominate them eventually in resources and mana, which would in turn allow you to answer all of their threats and make your threats unanswerable, and you would ultimately just win the game. So having my name tied to the idea of card advantage in Magic, I think, would be my legacy if I were to choose for one thing. And I guess that's certainly the case now, at least with people who've been playing the game for a long time. My name doesn't come up in modern conversations of the game normally because I don't play it in any topical way. I'm not doing Pro Tour commentary anymore. I'm not playing on the Pro Tour. I'm not playing in Grand Prix or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if you follow old school format, of course, you've probably heard about me.
All right, guys, if you're still watching this video, it doesn't matter if you're first time or if this is 40 years down the road, if I'm still around making videos, I don't know.
YouTube will have a lot more shit on it by then.
Brian and I are very excited to, we're going to do some really cool stuff. First off, GP Vegas 2018 is coming up in June. I'm really excited to be able to hang out with Brian and also some of the community members. We're gonna get Brian to play at the booth. He'll bring his deck, hopefully something different.
No way, man.
But guys,
Gunslinging with control.
I know. So you don't worry, guys. He will be playing the deck. If you got Brian is a very approachable guy. He is one of the I'm honored to call him my friend. He is just a great, just stand-up person. And if you guys come by the booth, do not be shy. He is very approachable. I can't wait for like the rest of more community members to meet you because it's been an honor just to spend time with you. No, seriously. I mean, seriously. In all BS aside, guys, I give him a lot of shit, but I'm bound to him here at this point. But I don't know how this camera's looking right here. Like
You're probably not even in the frame.
I'm kneeling. Yeah. All right, but seriously, I really appreciate you guys watching all the videos. It's going to be exciting to see all the stuff, just the great stories that are coming out. And we really appreciate you guys. Thanks again. Put your comments below. Brian will read them. And we'll try to make some other follow-up, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks again for watching, guys. Take care.